I don't know how many times I have to tell y'all this, ladies, but I want you to really understand that the wrong man can completely derail your life. And I'm not just talking about a man who cheats on you or a man who physically abuses you, but you know I don't play by that either. I'm talking about the insecure man. Because insecurity in a man isn't always going to look like I'm insecure. It sometimes look like him trying to control you. Excuse me. It looks like him constantly questioning you, where you are, who you're talking to, what you're wearing, who you're following, who follows you, why somebody liked your picture, why you got dressed up, why you're going to the gym, why you want to make more money, why you want to go back to school, why you want to travel, why you have girlfriends, why you need time to yourself. And slowly, without you even realizing it, what's happening? You start shrinking your life to make him comfortable. So there won't be conflict. That's what I want to talk about today. Because some of you are calling it love, communication, compromise, or he just cares about me. When really, you're dealing with a man whose insecurity is becoming your lifestyle. And baby, if being with somebody requires you to become smaller, quieter, less ambitious, less attractive, less social, less confident, and less of you, just so he can feel secure, that's not the relationship you want. That is prison with romance sprinkled on top. Let's start with your self esteem. An insecure man can slowly train you to question yourself. He has a problem with your body, then he has a problem with what you're wearing, then he has a problem with your hair, then he has a problem with you wearing makeup. Then suddenly you're standing in the mirror wondering, am I doing too much? And that's the danger. Because eventually you stop asking yourself, what do I like? And you start asking, what won't piss him off? That's how you choose yourself. That's how you lose yourself. And research on abusive relationships has found that women in abusive relationships can experience lower self esteem and optimism alongside greater psychological symptoms. And then there's your drive. This one doesn't get talked about enough because insecure men don't always tell you don't succeed. Sometimes they just make succeeding exhausting. They make it a problem. Every opportunity becomes an argument. Every new job becomes suspicious. Every business idea becomes, why do you need to do all that? Every networking event becomes, who's going to be there? Every accomplishment somehow becomes a threat to his ego. You start spending so much energy managing his emotions that you don't have any energy left to build your own life. And now you're not chasing your dreams. You're managing a grown man's insecurity. That's a terrible trade. And then there's your mental health. Imagine constantly having to explain yourself, constantly defending innocent interactions, constantly proving you're loyal, constantly wondering what mood he's going to be in, constantly anticipating the next argument, constantly walking on eggshells. That kind of relationship can put you into survival mode. And that's not just internet talk. Research on coercive control has found significant associations with mental health outcomes, including depression and PTSD related symptoms. And I want women to pay attention to something else. Your body knows when you're not safe. You might not call it abuse. You might call it relationship stress, but you're not sleeping right. You're constantly tense. You're exhausted. You're getting goosebumps when the door opens. You're emotionally drained. Your eating habits change. Your heart rate exceeds when he pulls into the driveway. You stop working out. You stop taking care of yourself. You think that's a good relationship? A relationship that makes you feel like you got to stop taking care of yourself? You think you're safe? You don't feel like yourself anymore. You don't want to socialize. Your physical health can start reflecting the emotional environment you're living in. And then you have the isolation. Oh my gosh. I fell for this one. This is the one of the biggest things I see women talking about online when describing control in relationships. The man doesn't necessarily start with, I'm going to isolate you from everybody. He starts with, your friend doesn't really like me. Or why do you tell your mother everything? See, that's what he don't want you to tell your mama. He don't want you to slip and say something. And your mama, she on high alert now. She like, what? He did what? Your sister is putting things in your head. That's what he gonna tell you. Your sister putting stuff in your head. She jealous of you. She ain't got no man. They can't never keep no man. None of your family can never keep a man. None of your friends can never keep a man. You got one. They can't keep now. Your coworkers are too friendly with you. Why do you need to go out without me? Why are you talking to him? And eventually, you don't have anybody left. Research on coercive control specifically identifies controlling behaviors and isolation as part of the broader pattern. And recent online discussions from women describing these controlling relationships repeatedly center around losing contact with friends and family, having their choices monitored, and becoming trapped in a relationship that gradually consumes their independence. And that's when his insecurity becomes extremely dangerous because now he's not just insecure, he's managing your entire environment. Who you talk to, where you go, what you wear, how you spend money, what job you take, who you follow, who follows you, what you post, how you look, how much time you spend away from him. And now you're living your life around somebody else's emotional instability. They can be very unpredictable too. That's not love. That is control. That is your guard. I mean, he's the warden. Some of the guards be cool in prison. He the warden. And here's another thing I want women to understand. You cannot love an insecure man into becoming a secure man. You can reassure him 5,000 times. You can give him your passwords. You can stop talking to certain people. You can stop wearing certain clothes. You can stop going certain places. You can constantly tell him that he's the only man you want. And you can make yourself smaller and smaller and smaller. And if his insecurity is being managed through controlling you, there will always be another thing. It's never going to stop because the problem isn't that you haven't reassured him enough. The problem is that he has learned to regulate his insecurity by restricting you. Don't feel bad for leaving an insecure man. I don't care if it came from his childhood. That is not your responsibility of what he went through in his childhood. You went through stuff in your childhood too, and you've got to deal with that, just like he needs to deal with his. And research support this distinction. Studies on emotional abuse and controlling behavior show that these behaviors can undermine women's sense of control and contribute to psychological distress. And I see women online describing another part of this that I think is extremely important. You start becoming a different person just to avoid the conflict. You don't post the pictures. You don't go to the events. You don't wear the outfit. You don't tell him about the opportunity. You don't mention that male coworker. You don't tell your friends. You don't tell him your friends invited you somewhere. You don't tell him you want to travel. You don't tell him you want to move because you already know what the reaction is going to be. So now you're living a filtered version of your own life. That is crazy. And I absolutely do not like men that do this to women. And that's how an insecure man can destroy your life without ever putting his hands on you, which we know they do that as well. He can destroy your confidence, your ambition, your friendships, your peace, your independence, your relationship with your own body, your ability to trust yourself, and eventually your sense of identity. And ladies, I need you to stop confusing a man's discomfort with your wrongdoing. He's uncomfortable because you got prettier. That is not your emergency. He's uncomfortable because you're making more money. That is not your problem. He's uncomfortable because other people notice you. That's not your problem. He's uncomfortable because you have friends. That's not your problem. He's uncomfortable because you have a life outside of him. That is not your problem. A grown man needs to learn how to regulate his own emotions. You are not his emotional support animal. You are not his therapist. You are not his probation officer. And you damn sure should not have to sacrifice your life so that a man can feel like he's enough. Because here's the thing. A healthy man doesn't need you to be less of a woman so he can feel like more of a man. A healthy relationship should give you room to expand. You should become more confident, more financially secure, more connected to yourself, more socially fulfilled, more ambitious, more peaceful, more you, not less. And if you look up one day and realize that you've become smaller, quieter, poorer, lonelier, more anxious, less ambitious, and less confident since you got with somebody, please stop romanticizing that. That is information, that is data. Your life is telling you something. So, ladies, here's today's life lesson. Never build a life around managing somebody else's insecurity. Because the longer you do it, the more normal it starts to feel. You start calling anxiety love. You start calling control protection. You start calling isolation peace. You start calling walking on eggshells being considerate. You start calling losing yourself compromise. No, I want you to get back to yourself. Get your confidence back. Get your friends back. Get your hobbies back. Get your money back. Get your ambition back. Get your body back, girl. Get your peace back. And most importantly, get your ability to make decisions without consulting someone else's insecurity back. Because you should never have to destroy yourself to keep somebody else comfortable. And if a man's confidence depends on you being smaller, let him be uncomfortable and let it go. You don't have to become less so somebody else can feel like enough. This is Pretty Girl Rich Era, where we heal, level up, and become the best version of ourselves. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, loves.